Good morning, and welcome honored veterans, visiting dignitaries, members of the Hastings community and their guests, students and staff of Hastings High School. Welcome to our Veterans Day celebration. Veterans Day is a national holiday proclaimed annually by the President of the United States and by the state governors in honor of former members of the United States Armed Services to recall their sacrifices in war and contributions in peace. It was formerly known as Armistice Day. On the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, exactly 100 years ago yesterday, an armistice, or temporary cessation of hostilities, went into effect between the Allied nations and Germany. A year later, in 1919, President Woodrow Wilson first proclaimed November 11th as Armistice Day, as a way to recognize those who served and those who died in what would become known as World War I. On June 1st, 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed an act of Congress to, quote, honor American veterans of all wars on the 11th day of November each year. Thus, Veterans Day came into being, with observances held in towns and cities throughout the country and at Arlington National Cemetery outside of Washington, D.C. At this time, will you please rise and remove your hats for the presentation of our nation's colors? Our flag is being presented today by Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1210 Honor Guard. And now Select Chorale will perform our national anthem. Please remain standing and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Let me take just a moment and read to you a portion of this year's presidential proclamation issued by the White House late last week. Our nation's veterans represent the best of America. Generation after generation, men and women have answered the call to defend our country and our freedom, facing danger and uncertainty with uncommon courage. They make tremendous sacrifices by leaving their families to serve throughout the homeland and in combat, contingency, and humanitarian operations worldwide. Our heroes have always relied on their families for strength and support. Serving alongside our men and women in uniform, our spouses, siblings, parents, and children who personify the ideals of patriotism, pride, resilience, service above self, and honor. They endure the hardships and uncertainty of multiple relocations, extended trainings, and deployments because of their admirable devotion to our country and a loved one in uniform. President Ronald Reagan said, quote, "America's debt to those who would fight for her defense doesn't end the day the uniform comes off." End quote. Our nation's veterans fulfilled their duty to this country with brave and loyal service. It is our moral and solemn obligation to demonstrate to them our continuing gratitude, unwavering support, and meaningful encouragement. Signed, the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. Today, there is, and perhaps there always will be, conflict in the world. In the United States, we are fortunate to enjoy peace and freedom. Like other things of great value, the security we have did not come cheaply. Part of the cost has already been paid by Americans who answered the call to military duty when their country needed them. Brave men and women served in wars from the Revolutionary War to the ongoing War on Terror. They have earned the distinction, veteran. But another part of freedom's cost must continue to be paid long after the guns have been silenced. This debt is owed to America's veterans. Some need their country's help, even as their country once needed theirs, to adjust into society, to recover from wounds, or to overcome hardships of age and infirmity. Let us continue to help those veterans who are in need with the greatest possible compassion and understanding. To the rest, since they ask no special help, we can pay tribute this day by recognizing what they have achieved and join them in their resolve to keep America strong and free. It is most fitting that we recognize these veterans assembled here today, but it would be improper to forget our fallen countrymen who did not return to their families and loved ones. So, let us pause now and be silent to honor those who died in service to the United States. Will you please rise? You may be seated. And now, we would like to recognize individual members and veterans of the United States Army, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard, and Air Force by performing the musical medley, Armed Forces, the Pride of America. Ladies and gentlemen, when your military song is performed, please rise and be recognized. At this time, I am honored to present our keynote speaker. Edwin Adricula served a combined 24 years with the Army and the Army National Guard. He continues to serve his country by helping military families as Vice President of Operations for the United Heroes League. He is a proud resident of Hastings and the father of 3 children in Hastings Public Schools. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming retired Sergeant Major Edwin Adricula.
Yep, gotta lower that a little bit. It's a bit tall. So, thank you for the introduction. I appreciate that. Good morning. My name is Edwin Adricula, and I am a retired Sergeant Major of the Minnesota Army National Guard. Before I go any further, I just want to recognize the performance of the Hastings High School Band, Choir, and Orchestra. You guys have done a beautiful job, so thank you very much. Principal Mike Johnson, veteran support groups, community leaders, representatives, teachers, administrators, parents, friends, family, students, and most of all, my fellow veterans. Thank you very much for having me here today and giving me this opportunity to speak at the Hastings Veterans Day celebration. It's an honor and a very humbling experience. We're here today to celebrate Veterans Day. It's a day to honor all those that have served, currently serving in all branches of the United States military, the Army, the Navy, Air Force, Marines, and the Coast Guard. Today is a day to recognize the brave men and women that put on the uniform, have fought overseas, responded to natural disasters, and those that have given the ultimate sacrifice. Veterans, past and present, thank you for all that you do. I've been a resident of Hastings for 14 years now. Prior to moving here, my family and I moved where the Army saw fit. As a matter of fact, my son Tyler was born in Germany. My daughter Juliana, hi Julie, was born in Hawaii, and Heidi was still pregnant with Autumn, hi Autumn, when we arrived here in Minnesota. I arrived here in the middle of December, and it was a shock coming from Hawaii. Minnesota was cold that year, and it was cold the year after that, and the year after that, and this year as well. But I gotta tell you, the transition was easy for my family when moving here. It was noticeable that there was a footprint of military service in the Hastings community. My neighbors were very welcoming and friendly, and yes, both were veterans. Seemed like everyone I came across were supporters of veterans, or many were veterans themselves. And all that is still true today. That's evident with the amount of people that are here in attendance, those that attend the Memorial Day celebration held at Roadside Park every year. There's a park named Veterans Park, and of course, General Sieben Drive. I'm not surprised that Hastings High School is one of the first high schools to organize a community-wide tribute for all of its veterans. Hastings continues to show its patriotism. I read that 25 students from the 2018 senior class enlisted into the military last year, and that's just amazing. So Hastings will continue that legacy and have veterans in our community for years to come, and I'm very proud to call Hastings my home. As a veteran and a service member, it takes a special type of person to raise that right hand and give that commitment to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And I'm confident that that verbiage sounds very familiar to the veterans sitting here today. You recited that at the beginning of your military careers. Along with this commitment, we were sworn to a set of core values on how to conduct ourselves as service member on and off duty. Those core values have been ingrained and learned throughout my military career, and is something that I believe that most veterans can relate to. I think that's why my family and I love living in this community, because many of the residents hold those core values and still apply them to their daily lives. And I'd like to share those values with you today, because it's these values is what being a service member is all about. The Army does its best by trying to simplify things so that we can remember things. And the Army core values is the acronym is leadership. That's LDR-SHIP. Lima, Delta, Romeo, Sierra Hotel, India, Papa. For you veterans out there that still need the phonetic alphabet version. So loyalty. Loyalty to the organization you serve, loyal to the people you serve with, loyalty to the United States of America and its Constitution. Duty, fulfilling your obligation and completing the tasks you were given, doing your part so that the mission can be accomplished and so that we can be victorious. Respect, respecting those that you work with side by side, your brothers and sisters in arms, without any discrimination, regardless of gender, race, religion, or age. All that matters is that you can rely on each other, especially at the time of need. Selfless service. You do that when you raise your hand and agree to defend this nation. You put the needs of others ahead of yourself, and you do what you can to protect them from harm. Integrity. Integrity is not just being honest, but doing the right thing even when no one is watching, and that's one of my favorites. Honor. Doing your duty with dignity and respect. As a serviceman, your actions represent the military as a whole. And personal courage. The courage isn't limited to doing heroic actions during wartime. It also means doing things that you don't feel comfortable doing and standing up for what is right, even if others don't agree. It's these values that veterans have tried to adhere to as a service member, and most have applied to everything else they've done, even after their service. To be part of a team, you have to uphold high standards. It's because of these values that we hear the heroism of those service members from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan. It's because of these values that we are here today celebrating Veterans Day. Veterans, thank you for living these values and thank you for making our community great. Now, we can do a better job recognizing our veterans. I read from a Navy captain's Veterans Day speech that I found online of some of the things that we can do. For those veterans here today, please share your story with others. Let people know what you've done so they can see many faces of military service and appreciate the personal service of their neighbors. If you're not a veteran, find someone in your life that is a veteran and ask them about their service, or just simply say thank you. The more we talk about what we do and the impact military service has on our lives, the better able we are to uphold as an example of excellence. As I come to a close with the Veterans Address, I'm about to shift gears here in a little bit, and I'd like to take this opportunity to mention another type of service member. And this service member has never raised his or her right hand, they've never sworn to an oath, and they have never gone through training. And I'm talking about the military family and the children. Military kids experience deployments, they experience long training exercises, and they even understand rank structure. They miss out on birthdays, they miss out on holidays, and many other celebrations. They're proud of their service members, but they're sad when duty calls. Just a little bit about a month ago, 650 Minnesotans departed for Kuwait for a 9-month deployment. And those are our neighbors, our friends, and our family members. Hastings High School students here today, like Lucas, Preston, and Cassidy, that are going through a deployment and have a family member overseas. And I bet they miss their loved ones very dearly. There are many others throughout the state of Minnesota going through this rough time, and I'd like everyone here to keep those military families in mind who are going through this deployment and keep them in our prayers. Veterans, we appreciate your service and thank you for all that you do. My name is Edwin Adricula. I'm a retired Sergeant Major of the Minnesota Army National Guard. But more importantly, I am Tyler, Juliana, Autumn, and Nathaniel's dad, and they have and are currently attending Hastings Public Schools, and we live here. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your service.
necessary for one people to resolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Here lies a soldier of the Revolution, whose identity is known but to God. His was an idealism that recognized a supreme being, that planted religious liberty on our shores, that overthrew despotism, that established a people's government, that wrote a constitution setting merits and bounds of delegated authority, that fixed a standard of value upon men above gold, and lifted high the torch of civil liberty along the pathway of mankind. In ourselves his soul exists as part of ours, his memory's mansion. From the tomb of the unknown soldier. I believe in the United States of America as a government of the people, by the people, for the people, whose just powers are derived from the consent of the governed, a democracy in a republic, a sovereign nation of many sovereign states, a perfect union, one and inseparable, established upon those principles of freedom, equality, and humanity for which American patriots sacrificed their lives and fortunes. I therefore believe it is my duty to my country to love it, to support its Constitution, to obey its laws, to respect its flag, and to defend it against all enemies. From The American's Creed by William Tyler Page, as adopted by Congress in 1918. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead, we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. The Gettysburg Address, 1863. Individually and as a nation, to accept whatever sacrifices may be required of us. A people that values its privileges above its principles soon loses both. From Call to Sacrifice by Dwight D. Eisenhower. I only regret that I have but one life to lose for my country. from the last words of Nathan Hale, September 22nd, 1776. Put none but Americans on guard tonight, from message to his commanders by George Washington, April 30th, 1777. We give up the fort when there's not a man left to defend it. From reply to the British, August 1st, 1813. Lafayette, we are here. From Americans in Paris, 4th of July, 1917. Praise the Lord and pass the ammunition, spoken at Pearl Harbor, December 7, 1941. The free men of the world are marching together in victory. I have full confidence in your courage, devotion to duty, and skill in battle. We will accept nothing less than full victory. Good luck, and let us all beseech the blessings of Almighty God upon this great and noble undertaking. We do honor to the Stars and Stripes as emblem of our country and the symbol of all that our patriotism means. We identify the flag with almost everything we hold dear on earth. It represents our peace and security, our civil and political liberty, our freedom of religious worship, our family, our friends, our home. But when we look at our flag and behold it emblazoned with all of our rights, we must remember that it is equally a symbol of our duties. Every glory that we associate with it is the result of duty done. A yearly contemplation of our flag strengthens and purifies the national conscience. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gate shall stand a mighty woman with torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name be Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command their air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands, your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore, send these, the homeless, tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. From the New Colossus, by Emma Lazarus, as inscribed on the Statue of Liberty.
Good morning. My name is Mike Johnson, and it's my privilege to serve as Hastings High School principal. I would like to take this opportunity again to thank retired Sergeant Major Edwin Adricula for his Veterans Day address. Ed has continued to serve our country through the United Heroes League, an organization here in Hastings that supports the family of deployed service members throughout the country by getting their children involved in sports and activities. The United Heroes League partners with professional athletes and major corporations to take care of children of active service members who are deployed. Let's have a well-deserved round of applause for retired Sergeant Major Edwin Adricula. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank the many veterans that are with us today. Also, thank you to those veterans who are with us today watching Facebook Live for Hastings Community Television. I would like to recognize those staff members within the Hastings School District who served in the military. Please stand and remain standing as I call your name. Pete Carpenter, Scott Enstrom, Kurt Grumman, Justin Hahn, Wendy Livingston, Harry Meyer, Chuck Mortel, Michelle Munger, Lindy Rawe, Bob Renardi, Jim Vandervest, and Hastings Community Television Executive Director Tom Wright. Please join me in a round of applause for our military members in our schools. Today you see many of us who are wearing stickers, students and staff, with patriotic emblems on them. We are wearing each sticker in honor of a veteran within our families. My grandfather and 5 uncles served in World War II, one of which died on the beaches of Normandy. I also have an uncle that served in Korea and a brother-in-law who served in the Persian Gulf. Our Hastings High School students and students at Pinecrest and Kennedy Elementary Schools wrote thank you notes to the veterans today. Those notes will be passed out to the veterans after the program by our military support group, so if our military support group students could join me on the floor after the program, we will pass these out. However, I'd like to read a few of the thank you notes to you. This is from Avery at Pinecrest Elementary. Dear veteran, you have shown bravery, perseverance, and protection. You are a very fearless, strong, generous veteran. Thank you for fighting for one of the branches. Thank you for fighting for the country and giving us freedom. I don't care what branch you worked in, I'm just grateful that you did. Thank you. And this is from Eddie at Pinecrest. Thank you for serving our country. We are thankful you helped keep us safe. And then our own high school student here, Joe Seeger, wrote a note to his father, Mark, who is a veteran. Dear Mark, thank you for being in the United States Marine and serving our country. Thank you for being the most baddest Marine there can be, and thank you for being an awesome father. There are many active servicemen and women with us today that are full-time students or serve in the reserves. We also have parents with us whose children are currently serving in the active military. In addition, Hastings High School sponsors a military support group for students that have a family member actively serving in the military. If you are a current soldier, have a child in the military, or are a member of the military support group, would you please stand so we can recognize your service to our country? Hastings High School strongly supports military careers as a solid vocation for students after they graduate from high school. Last year, there were 23 members of the class of 2018 who entered the military. This year, we already have 3 students who are enlisted. Could I please have these students stand up and be recognized? Lydia Carta, Jessica Davidson, and Zoe Van Hatten. Please stand so we can show you our recognition for serving our country. And we will conclude our Veterans Day celebration by singing For Spacious Skies. You can find the words in your program to sing the last verse. After this song, students, you will report to period 2. Veterans, families, everyone gathered today, thank you for serving our country. And veterans, thank you so much.
Thank you for coming. You're dismissed to second hour.